In the same way, the mind was consciousness in the beginning, and it will be consciousness again in the end, after its nature and function as mind have ceased. Why is it then called differently in the middle now? We've no reason to suppose that consciousness ever changes. When you touch this awareness, when you touch your own awareness, you realize its unchanging nature. It's what holds everything. It's what everything changes within. This deeply personal consciousness is the same as your consciousness. How can it be any different? It's like saying, if I have two pots, the space in this pot is different from the space in this pot. Or I'm cupping some space here and I'm cupping some space here. I can put different things into my hand, but is that changing the space that these things are within? All these phenomena seem to have a transient reality, like dream experiences, visions in a state of delirium, hallucinations of a drunkard, optical illusions, psychosomatic illness, emotional disturbances and psychotic states. This is what the mind creates. But, O mind, you have conferred a permanent reality upon them, even as a lover suffers from the very imagination of his beloved's separation. It's like people that feel depressed or negative. They tend to assume there's something more real about that than when they're feeling upbeat. And in fact, they tend to ignore the times that they're feeling upbeat and content. These times somehow don't seem to exist, even if they do. They assume the negative states are the permanent ones. And this is what happens to people that kill themselves. They somehow are assuming that whatever pain they're feeling is permanent. This is what their mind tells them, that what is happening now is permanent. I'm not talking about people that are suffering from some clearly terminal illness and they are in constant pain. I can't really argue with that. I'm talking about psychological pain. People that are feeling emotional or mental pain. Along with that pain comes the feeling that it's permanent, that it's unbearable. There's a story that the psychologist R.D. Laing told. Somebody came to him for depression. So he started off by just chatting with this person. And then they told a few jokes, told a few stories, and had a good chat for a wee while. And this extended to the whole hour of the session. And it was time for the client to go. And on the way out he says, "Oh, what about my depression?" And R.D. Laing had just distracted him from his notion about being depressed. And if he can be so easily distracted, then what's the problem? He'd got this idea that he's depressed, and there's no doubt he probably felt severely black inside. But the assumption is that that's what he's got all the time. And yet R.D. Laing just chatted and joked with him for an hour, and the depression wasn't an issue. So this is what the mind does. It tells us these states are permanent. There's a feeling that they're permanent and unbearable. So Uddalaka is talking to his mind here and rebuking it. But of course this is not your fault. It is my fault that I still cling to the notion that you, my mind, is a real entity. It's like the depression, saying it's a real entity. When I realize that all these phenomena are illusory experiences, then you will become no mind, and all the memories of sense experiences, etc. will come to an end. All notions of sense experiences will come to an end. When consciousness realizes itself and abandons its self-limiting mental conditioning, the mind is freed from its colouring and rests in its essential nature, which is consciousness. When the mind, gathering to itself all its limbs, that's the limbs of the senses, I think, or notions of the senses. When the mind, gathering to itself all its limbs, offers itself into the fire of pure consciousness, it is purified and attains immortality. We tend to think of immortality as something that lasts forever, but all immortality is something that is not subject to time, and consciousness is not subject to time. But it's difficult to get freed from this colouring. Even if you can get in touch with this awareness, there might still be an overwhelming sense of pain, of emotional pain. And this is what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body. You're in a great position when you can just see this pain body and not be automatically feeding it. This is the best way of dealing with it, is to actually look beyond this colouring and be aware of what's there. So we're usually told that once we're in this awareness, once we've realised our own awareness, that there's bliss. And that bliss isn't always apparent. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. It's bliss in the sense of it being a state of great good fortune, really. It's like you've won the lottery. You've realised what spiritual seekers have been looking for generations, for millennia. You've understood the secret of all secrets, the mystery of all mysteries. But having got there, it can still be a challenge. The challenge is dealing with the latent tendencies, your own psychological tendencies, your own deep pain perhaps. If you don't see this pain, then that's great, but I think most people have this pain body. We don't have to worry about where it came from or what it's about. We just have to be aware of it and not feed it. Sometimes trying to do something about it is just feeding it. It's like, well, it's just not a good idea to poke it, let's say that. This pain body, it seems to me, it just arises from the very fact of our own existence. The teacher Gurdjieff talked about the terror of the situation. You can certainly, if you certainly look around what's going on, then that's quite a good description. And it's natural to respond to this with pain. So this is the pain body. And we can step beyond it and acknowledge it. And the only way we can step beyond it is to step into realization of our own consciousness and the nature of that consciousness.